What happens when ideology replaces reality? When laws are written around feelings instead of facts? Well, this week, two stories suggest Australia may already have our answer. The first, more than 1,000 men have legally changed their sex to female on New South Wales birth certificates since the Minns government introduced self-identification laws in July last year. Today, changing the sex on your birth certificate will cost you $73 and no gender-affirming surgery is required. The government says these reforms simply make life easier for transgender Australians. But they also raise an important question. What is a birth certificate supposed to record? Biological reality or personal identity? Because while someone may identify however they choose, biological sex does not change. And that distinction matters for things like women's sport, prisons, change rooms, and domestic violence refuges. Premier Chris Minns said this earlier in the year.
There's biological differences between people who are born male and people who are born female, and that needs to be reflected in the law.
So there's New South Wales Labor Premier saying biological sex matters, but sitting next to a law his own government passed that detaches legal sex from it. The Honourable Rachel Merton MLC called out the government's hypocrisy.
The Premier Chris Minns suddenly recognised biological reality and said that New South Wales law must uphold the difference between men and women in sport and in our jails. This is, of course, after his own Labor government ushered in sex self-identification laws that enabled biological men identifying as women to change their sex 365 times a year via little more than a click of the keyboard. This was after just a few weeks ago his own Labor government said they would change the construction code next year to allow up to half of all women's public toilets to be gender neutral.
And this isn't just theoretical debate. We're already seeing the legal consequences. The Giggle versus Tiggle case exposed just how difficult the law becomes when biological sex and gender are treated as interchangeable. This has become the subject of a landmark discrimination case around female-only spaces. The courts were asked to determine where sex ends and gender identity begins, and they ruled in favour of a transgender woman instead of a biological woman. Giggle CEO Sal Grover spoke after the ruling and said, "We're not living in reality."
Men can now be women. I mean, this is something that even Orwell didn't dare imagine, and we are actually living it. And if you so much as challenge it, you will be punished.
And when the lines become blurred, it becomes harder to write laws that uphold sex-based rights. That's why these changes deserve scrutiny, because once biological sex becomes another administrative category, every law built around sex becomes more difficult to interpret and apply. And perhaps even more concerning, 80 children have changed their sex on their birth certificate. Why should a child make a change before they're old enough to vote, drink alcohol, or enter into most legally binding contracts? Why not just wait until adulthood? Other countries are taking a different path. The United Kingdom has reinforced biological sex in parts of its law.
I know what a woman is, and I always have. Yeah. The people of this country know what a woman is. We didn't need the Supreme Court to tell us that, but this government did. A Labour government so desperate to jump on a bandwagon that they abandoned common sense, along with the SNP, who put rapists in women's prisons, and of course the Liberal Democrats.
And yet Australia appears to be moving in the opposite direction. And perhaps that's what makes this second story so important. After 3 years under investigation, child psychiatrist Dr. Gillian Spencer has been cleared by APRA. Dr. Spencer was suspended in 2023 for publicly criticising her hospital's approach to treating children with gender dysphoria. She questioned the evidence underpinning gender treatments. Dr. Spencer joined Outsiders this morning and said this ruling is important.
Now we have an Australian tertiary children's hospital publicly stating that the gender affirmation approach is not the right approach for children with gender distress.
And Dr. Spencer's employment dispute with Queensland Health has now been resolved and says the outcome vindicates the concerns she raised years ago. She's also accused APRA of allowing ideology to influence the regulation of medicine.
And APRA should never again play a role in suppressing debate about medical issues. APRA is being influenced by LGBTIQA+ gender activists. APRA's signed up to the Rainbow Tick scheme and the ACON's Pride and Diversity scheme, which means that they're embedding LGBTIQ+ ideology at all levels of service delivery, and they've acknowledged that it's influencing the way that they're regulating health professionals. So it's absolutely frightening and inappropriate.
And Dr. Spencer says the past 3 years have also highlighted just how difficult it is for medical professionals to speak out.
It's such a problem. Being a medical whistleblower is a real issue because your colleagues can sense the danger that you pose, and their instinct is to protect the institution that clothes and feeds them.
And that's exactly why these stories matter. Whether it's changing sex on a birth certificate or doctors questioning the evidence behind medical treatment, Australia should never be afraid of scrutiny because ideology should never take precedence over evidence. And no law can change biological reality. The sooner we return to evidence, common sense and open debate, the better Australia will be.